The Union Budget 2021. The Finance Minister of our country, Nirmala Sitharaman, presented her third budget this year. And today, we are gonna have a detailed discussion and an analysis of this year's Union Budget. So, let's begin. Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Grapevine, the best place for you to be informed. My name is Shaurya Joshi, and today we are gonna have a detailed analysis of this year's Union Budget. Now, today, what we all are experiencing, what we all are going through, it is something that we had never thought of. And this year's budget was prepared under such circumstances. We all have seen the finance minister carrying a red tablet instead of a bahi khata that she was seen with in the previous budget years. So this year was something different, something unique. For the very first time in the history of India, the Union Budget was paperless. Now, the finance minister, she made a number of announcements on 1st February. But let me tell you that the increasing health complications in the country made these circumstances that we are living in an adversity for us, an adversity for the people of India. And keeping this in mind, the finance minister of our country announced a new healthcare scheme, the Pradhan Mantri Atmanirbhar Swasth Bharat Yojana, having an allocation of 64,000 crore rupees. Now this would be put into operation over the coming 6 years. Now with this scheme, it would strengthen the public health services as the rural, I would say 17,000 rural and 11,000 urban healthcare centers and wellness centers would be set up in each district in the country. Not only this, the finance minister, I would say, made an unprecedented expenditure for healthcare this year. Like 2.23 lakh crore rupees of expenditure for the healthcare sector, and she has to say that this is an increase of 137% over the previous year's budget. If you look at the facts, then the Indian Health Ministry this year has been allocated 73,000 crore rupees, which is actually a 10% increase to the previous year's budget. But what brings us to this increased figure of 137% increase is the addition of a few existing heads. The Ayush Ministry, the Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation, and allocation by the Finance Commission for Health, and especially the new allocation of money for the COVID-19 vaccination. And all of these have together increased the allocation that the government has today arrived at. So this is a huge jump in the health allocation this year. The Finance Minister announced 35,000 crore rupees for the development and manufacturing of the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, I must tell you that this initiative by the Finance Minister is going to have a huge influence on the health sector because more funds would provide an effective and a smooth, I would say, pace, for carrying out this vaccination process and schemes. And therefore, this would help our country come out of this situation, come out of this problem, and help our country become free from the baneful effects of coronavirus. So, all of this is quite reassuring. Now, on 1st February, the Finance Minister intended to bring a voluntary vehicle scrappage policy, which was in demand by the automobile industry for quite a long while. Now, this scrappage policy, it aims at phasing out cars and the commercial vehicles which are older than 20 and 15 years after undergoing a fitness test. Now this policy of course is environmentally friendly, it will reduce vehicular pollution, but why is it so important, especially today in the crisis we are living in? This is important because the phasing out of the old vehicles will increase the demand of the new vehicles. With increase in demand, the production will increase, and ultimately, with the increase in production, the automobile industry will grow and flourish. Now this is important because the automobile industries had been suffering a lot owing to the lockdown, and even it is still suffering even during this, India's post-COVID recovery phase. So this step taken by the finance minister is very well thought of and intelligent. Also, the government on 1st of February proposed a bad bank-like structure for managing these bad loans, these non-performing loans. So, what is a bad bank? A bad bank is a bank which buys the bad loans or the non-performing assets. These are those loans for which the payment is overdue. So I can tell you that these non-performing assets are actually loss asset. For example, if an entity has a significant number of non-performing assets, it has to do something about it. So they can sell it to the bad bank, which can help these institutions to, clear such assets. Now in the lockdown, to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic, a number of people lost their jobs, and owing to these partially functioning businesses, the country witnessed an increase in non-performing assets. Now the government has to deal with these NPAs, these bad loans. How? That's exactly what the finance minister did on 1st of February. She initiated a strategy to deal with these NPAs with a move to create a bad bank. Now, this is important because these NPAs, they may hit us anytime in future, because when we discover, the extent of disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic due to these NPAs, it may be very late. So it is very important to deal with it now. And that is why the finance minister, she talked about creating a bad bank. And by taking these assets which are not in the best shape, some value or some wealth can still be, generated from these assets which are considered as a bad asset, a non-performing asset, a bad loan today. And therefore I would say it is a very wise decision by the finance minister. It is a win-win situation for the government. So this budget is quite sound, and this will definitely help the financial system of our country, India. Now, in this 2-hour-long speech of Nirmala Sitharaman, she increased the capital expenditure and also focused on infrastructure building. And so she proposed to set up a development financial institution, DFI, to give a push to infrastructure building. Now, what is this DFI? Why is it helpful? Why is it used? Well, a development financial institution, a DFI, is an agency which provides funds for infrastructure building and infrastructure projects. Now, why is this important? Because today, the economy needs infrastructure investment more than ever. And unfortunately, because today there are only a few commercial leaders who are willing to take the risk and who are willing to actually provide funds for infrastructure projects due to the prevailing conditions, the DFIs become necessary, as these development financial institutions would then provide funds for these projects, which would have otherwise not been able to get these funds from anywhere. And that is why the finance minister proposed to set up a DFI, which is expected to give a massive lending of 5 lakh crore rupees till the coming 3 years. And this will support these small scale industries. So with this budget, basically the finance minister focused on areas which actually need the support and how she can get them that support. Another major step taken by the finance minister to push growth was hiking the capital expenditure. Now, increase in capital expenditure, which would mean raising the spending, plays a key role in reviving a depressed economy. How? Let us understand this. Capital expenditure is basically the money spent for the development of machinery, health facilities, and education. It is also the expenditure incurred on acquiring fixed assets by the government, and these fixed assets, they allow the economy, they enable the economy to generate more revenue for many more years to come. And these assets, they also encourage labor participation, that is, reduce unemployment rate, and it makes the economy more capable of producing more and more in the future. So this was the right time to take this decision. I am happy that the finance minister did not waste much time and did absolutely that was expected from her. Not just this, the finance minister also focused on asset monetization, which means making optimal utilization of assets which are not yielding appropriate, or I would say potential returns so far. For example, there is a government owned asset which is deriving a value of 100,000 crores, but it has the potential of deriving a value of 800,000 crores. It means this asset is suboptimally utilized. And so the strategy of the finance minister is to convert these assets into some economic value. And so she focused on shifting the suboptimal utilization into an appropriate utilization of these resources. And so the finance minister very intelligently tried to bring in the private sector into the picture, because it is only with the participation of the private sector that the real value of these unutilized assets can be derived, with the help of the latest technology of the private sector and the innovative business ideas. And that is how this budget can be called a very well thought of budget. So the finance minister, she came up with so many surprises on 1st of February. And another major announcement by her was setting a target of fiscal deficit of 6.8% for the year 2021-22. Now, fiscal deficits, they arise when the government spends more than what it gains in the form of taxes. That means more expenditure and less income. So, owing to the lockdown in the country, the government experienced a steep rise in expenditure and a dip in the revenue collection, which widened this fiscal deficit to 9.5% of the GDP. And therefore, the finance minister took this step, and she has taken a very long, and I would say a very long, slow glide path towards lowering this huge, I would say, fiscal deficit. Now, which would mean that the fiscal deficit of 9.5%, which is now in 2021, is expected to reduce to 4.5% by the year 2026. Now, why is it important that the fiscal deficit reduces? Because if the fiscal deficit does not reduce, which means if the gap between income and expenditure keeps on widening, then the government will have to borrow. If the government borrows, it will also have to repay it sometime in future. Borrowing today would compel the government to increase taxes and necessitate higher taxes. And we are the ones who have to pay these taxes. And I'm sure that nobody wants to pay higher taxes. And that is the reason why the finance minister took this step and was very bold in taking such a step towards growth. Now, before I end this, I would also like to mention another major step taken by the finance minister, which is increasing the permissible FDI limit from 49% to 74% in the insurance companies and allowing foreign ownership and control with safeguards. Now, this is a very, very liberal FDI policy, and this will definitely attract more foreign capital. See, there are so many people outside India who want to invest in India, and there's so much capital out there waiting to enter India. And I think this is a very intelligent step by the finance minister. Now, there are people who complain that the middle class and the farmers have been left out and neglected. They're not in the budget. Well, actually, the middle class people wanted some tax relief, but that is not what is important. What is important is to address the question of how to create more jobs. And that is exactly what the finance minister has focused on. Looking at the farmers, I think that the Modi government has already done a lot for the farmers. It is time that the farmers look at what has been allocated to them. So in a nutshell, I would like to say that this budget is far more better than what was expected. Nirmala Sitharaman focused on increasing consumer spending to end recession, because more consumer spending means more demand, and more demand means more production, and more production would compel the industries to create more jobs. And if there are more jobs in the country, that would increase employment in the country. So, this was all about this year's union budget. do tell me what you feel about this year's budget in the comment section below. And do appreciate my work by liking and sharing this video with as many people as possible and by subscribing to my channel. I really hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much.